Hello and welcome to this week's look at action and stunts on film. How the hell are you? You well? Been a rough week? I know, but don't worry. Today's Friday, you get a bit of this, a bit of that, and then the weekend to yourself. Or maybe you're doing other stuff over the weekend, but at least maybe you don't have to go to work. Maybe that's the thing. But you get this little ritual that we have now on a Friday, which involves looking at aspects of the stunt industry. On Wednesday, in the podcast, we were talking about ways in which stunt performers are put through their paces through the air, whether it be an explosion going off, a hand grenade being thrown, a gunshot being fired, them either explosions going through the air or them going backwards at a rate of knots. And of course there's a number of ways to do it. There is the trampoline explosion, a trampet, a small trampoline or large trampolines. We will watch some examples of that. Importantly here is timing. Timing's crucial to all of this. And as I think was ascertained quite early on, you can't teach timing. Timing is something that you have, and if you have it, you have to develop it and keep it on par. It's a bit like, I don't know, if you're working a certain muscle group, if you are trying to, I don't know, learn a new word every day, you know, something of that nature. It's something that has to be kept up. And with a great many of those early trampoline explosions, trampet explosions, it would involve jumping up to then jump down to get the bounce to then be lifted in accordance with the special effects guys setting off the explosion. And we're going to see a number of those. We are then going to see an air ram. And an air ram is a pneumatic system where you step on a plate and the pressure that's under there fires the plate and sends the performer in that direction there, or sends them up in the air, depending on how the setup is. Again, timing, because you're not just standing on it all the time. You may have to run at it and be launched in a certain direction, and you will see examples of that as well. I have tried to freeze frame certain areas so that we can maybe isolate certain bits and pieces, and there are examples where once that goes off, it stays put and you can see it in the shot, which is just a little something that bothers me slightly. You go to all that trouble of creating a remarkable action sequence. You go to all that trouble of putting in the pyrotechnics, putting in the explosions, doing this, doing that. You cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Then you leave the air ram in the shot. Why? I don't know. It's very confusing. But there are examples of that as well. And there are some behind the scenes bits and pieces as well, maybe to get a better idea of how this thing is approached. And then there are examples of ratchets. Jerk harnesses, as they used to be referred to. It's a wire attached to a central point, often a rope pull system, maybe by an individual if it's in a studio based. If it's on location, it will be tied to a stationary point. And again, you'll see examples of this, but it's a harness that is worn by the performer. There is a hook on the back. The costume is put over the top, and they will be riding a horse, or they will be riding a motorbike, or something of that nature. There'll be an explosion, and they will need to get out of there quite quickly, and consequently the explosion then is set off, and the tension on that is then forces them in a different direction. And again, you will see examples of that, and we'll try and isolate them and spot which is which and compare which is better. Maybe it would have been better in this instance if it had been an air ram instead of a piece of wire, or wire work, or was it only available in was the wire work the best option for this particular shot? Let's chew the fat, shall we, as we get a load of these. Here we go. So we start with trampolines. These are very trampolines in the Bond pictures. Some great examples of trampoline explosions and landings. And it didn't, they look, this is wild geese over the back of the car here. I mean, these are all really good examples. Then you move on to some air rams, and it's that initial push. They've even used that in that episode. But you can see that once the explosion goes off, there's a push there. Just, you can tell sometimes. You look at it, there's the push into the landing position, up and down. And these are all those moments when you need to get some distance. Again here, this is Invasion USA. Up and through. Here's Commando. Up. Bang, look. Again, pressure pushing to one side, the distance, the rotation of the arms, the movement. Up and down. Again, up onto the car and off. There's the push I'm referring to. That's another good example. But they're so, you put a big bang behind them, put a big explosion behind them, and it sells it. It does. It makes a big difference. Good turning in the air. Boing! Up he goes. Episode of Knight Rider, I think. There it is there. Look, they've left the air ram in the shot. Up, down. Again, still in the shot. You can still see it. Distance travelled, the explosion behind it. Put stuff in front of it. Cover it all up. Oi! Up you go. It's a fabulous piece of kit. Look, cover everything in front. Big explosion behind. Magnificent. There again, left it in the shot. Big bangs. You saw the push. Again, you keep looking for this push, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Is the problem I have. Now that's probably a little trampoline, mini tramp under there. This one, another tramp jumping down onto it, then going over the top of the railing. Flames everywhere. It's just, and again, this one probably jumped up, jumped down, and then pushed across the office, landing in the tables on the far side. Here, they've left it just underneath the car. There it is. The air ram just allowing him to get up onto the roof and over. Some of these explosions are amazing. And there it is again, just behind him. Last action hero, this one. It'll be in that doorway. You'll get a better look at that a bit later on because there's a nice landing area where you can see. And again, being thrown across the room. It doesn't matter what it is. There's an air ram option. And this has been a fairly stable part of the action industry for years. Oy, there's the long hang. Boing. Oh, this is, what's this? Once Upon a Time in... Boom! There it is. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're up on height, whether you're down on the ground. Another push there into the table. Bang! Great lift. You can hide it so many ways. Here's a wire gag. Truck comes through the car, and look at the way in which this guy's hanging in the air. That's controlled. That's a crane out of shot. Then you can mix some of these shots up. One on an air ram, one is a wire. Just the simple positioning in the air is another sort of combination of both. Possibly the shot underneath, watching him come down, that's a wire. Here's another wire being fired out, being brought out of that explosion. For comedic values, he's still holding the wheel in his hand. Out through the window, that's impressive as well. Probably an air ram to a point, and then a high fall. Again, the distance is being covered because they're being pulled out of there using a wire. using the ratchet. Back to the air rams again. Bang! Now, right by his right foot. That's where he's being pushed off from. And look, they've left it in shot. The other guy, the other side's on a wire. So they're combining both. Take a look again. There. So it fires from there. Look at the distance that you get. Look, that's... By the time he hits the airbag, what's that? 35 feet? Impressive. And you can use them in all sorts of scenarios. This is that other one again. Look at the landing area just in front of the cameraman here. All the grass, that's all been converted into a landing. The padding is buried in the ground. Watch the guys as they hit the ground here. And bang, right into the soft centres. Super. Again, firing with distance, firing people out through windows. Doesn't matter what it's required. There's always a way of being able to use an air ram or a wire. Here's another great example of a wire gag being dragged out of the fire. And here, off the back of that trailer. And here's another one, just pulling straight out the middle of the explosion. This one from Face Off, possibly a combination of both. As they come through the water, the positioning changes when they get to a certain part. So I'm suspecting that possibly there was an air ram issue, or they were free flying through the air at some point. Then the position changes. Then they're possibly being directed or assisted with a wire. Still a hell of a shot, though. Absolutely spectacular. Well, there we go. There's a fair example of a little of something right across the board. There's all sorts of options there. You will have seen the way in which filmmakers try to hide these bits and pieces. You will have seen the way that they don't always hide them. And you will have seen those wire shots and thought to yourself, it just looks like he's on a wire. It's the direction changing and all that sort of stuff. But that sometimes, you know, if you've got a couple of camera angles to play with, if you're covering something big by a couple of cameras, you can get away with it in the edit, maybe, you know. So that was the deal there. And I hope you enjoyed that. That was good fun to do. Now, next week, we've got something special next week. And I'm not going to tell you about it, but I am going to post little bits and pieces about it on the social medias. So don't forget to check that out. Keep in touch with what's going on. Don't forget to check out the Pod Dojo Network as well. They're the people responsible for my podcast. And if you haven't found out all the podcasts, then go back and check some more out. If you check the Pod Dojo Network out, you'll see all of those podcasts that are available there, and you can subscribe to them too. They're all worthwhile a listen, you know. So until next time, I must bid you a fond adieu and say thank you for now. Bye-bye.